I remember this vividly. I was 5 years old and I just fell in love with the power of the costume. Having that fundamental thought of, I think I want to be part of that transformative power of giving someone that opportunity to truly become who they are through clothing. As a designer, I think I failed if they notice the clothes first. Remember, when you're entering a room, do not make your outfit become the first thing they see. It should be you. I said some things that I shouldn't have said, and I take full responsibility for it. I apologize. And I think I've learned from that.
Recently, you have reacted to a statement made by Michael Cinco about how Filipino designers are underpaid and undervalued. Why was it important for you to speak up?
Oh my goodness.
So, what is your next move? For today's episode, we will be talking to a renowned fashion designer, creative director, and entrepreneur. Backed by a strong sense of advocacy, Rajo's designs are aimed not only for grandeur, but more so a purpose of highlighting a nation's artistry. Thus, his cultural pride and commitment has propelled Filipino fashion into the global stage, gaining recognition both locally and internationally. Let's all welcome Rajo Laurel.
Hi, Pee-wee.
Welcome, Rajo.
Oh my goodness, thank you for having me.
Of course,
What a
such
beautiful,
a pleasure.
beautiful
Applause,
space.
applause. Welcome, Rajo. Is this your first podcast guesting?
Live.
This is-
I've
you've
done
done
podcasts before, but it's all taped via computer.
I see.
So
okay.
here it's interesting because you have to dress up,
Yeah.
you have to make pabango,
Yeah.
you have to make sure you're pretty.
But your usual fab self, so it's effortless.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to be talking to you today because you're one of the creatives who really has a unique point of view, and your voice is really loud.
No, and also I'm a very proud mega baby.
Yes, you
And when
are.
I say mega baby, oh my God, I'm really a mega baby. I have so much history with with your company.
Yeah.
I have so much love for your brand, and I have so much stories to
Yes,
share.
and we can't wait to hear them all today. So, Raho, your journey into the fashion industry has been truly remarkable. Can you share maybe a pivotal moment or experience from your early years that solidified your passion for fashion design?
You know, my very first memory of why I wanted to become a fashion designer really began in the theater.
Oh, okay.
I was a young theater actor.
All
My
right.
first play was The King and I. My grandmother founded the Repertory Philippines, which is a local play group,
Mhm.
and they needed children to play the children or the prince and princesses of the King and I and the King of Siam. And I remember this vividly. I was 5 years old, and I just fell in love with the power of the costume. And I was so mesmerized by the fact that a person can one day, with a change of clothes, all of a sudden become the king of Siam.
Yeah.
And I
Transform.
realized that there was something special there. So I kept on sort of like just playing and looking at the costumes. And it began by having that fundamental thought of, I think I want to be part of that transformative power, that gift of giving someone that opportunity to truly become who they are through clothing
Yeah, or someone else.
or someone
Right.
else or to become someone else.
But had you chose that route, you'd be a thespian right now.
yeah,
right?
buti na I didn't become a lesbian. No, sorry. Yeah, you know, I mean, honestly, I probably wasn't going to be a good actor.
Why do you say that? Yeah.
I have very bad memories
At least you
for
tried,
lines.
right? I mean,
Yeah, we tried for many, many years. In fact, let me tell you, my claim to fame was that batch produced some of our best theater actors. I was there with Lea Salonga.
oh, all
And that's why
right.
we became friends. I was there with the Wea twins, if you remember them.
Okay.
Raymond Lauchenko and
Mhm.
also his sister,
Wow.
Menchu Lauchenko.
Yeah.
So really, that particular
That batch.
era
Yeah, that era.
was part. But I opted to sort of like veer away towards fashion.
Fashion. Okay. So growing up, were there any particular fashion icons or designers who inspired you?
Oh, several. I'm a Lola's boy,
Mhm.
and my grandmother was a ambassador's wife, and so during that time they would sort of like have so many events. And I
Parties.
remember this vividly. I was seated as my grandmother was dressing and looking at her, and she was dressing up, preparing to go to her parties. And I think that really sort of like was one of my core memories of how a woman really takes care of herself and just sort of like, puts on her makeup, wears a dress, and then, at the end, they were still wearing gloves. For me, that was sort of
Wow,
like
that's so
really
elegant.
fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so my Lola would sort of like, her best friend was Ramon Valera.
Okay.
And Ramon Valera would make gowns for her. And that sort of like really catapulted me to that world of having designers and muses and designers and their clients. But fast forward to when I went to university, my idols were Isaac Mizrahi, Rebecca Moses in the United States. However, I really, really loved Jeffrey Bean.
Okay.
He's probably one of my favorite designers. So he was one of my idols. And coming home, I apprenticed with Louis Mamengo, who was the designer for my mom.
Oh,
And I worked with him for many, many years. And also Pipito Albert. These were my mentors
I
locally.
see. Okay. You mentioned about your grandmother.
Yes.
Yeah, and she has a great sense of style and taste. What for you makes like a stylish woman?
I think a stylish woman is always comfortable in her own skin. It's nothing forced and it's nothing trying, but there's always something interesting.
Yeah, about that
My
also.
my grandmother always taught me this. Whatever you do, don't be coursey. This word, I never really understood
What?
but
Sorry?
coursey.
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 Okay.
It's a weird word
Okay,
because
what does
nobody
it
uses it
mean?
now. A little bit too much. It has
Okay.
to be just
Right.
below.
Below
Just
or
below.
okay.
Not even just right.
Right. Okay.
Not too much, not just right. Something because what that means is that you have to also leave room for your personality.
Yeah, to shine.
Yes.
Okay.
Remember, when you're entering a room,
Yeah.
do not make your outfit become the first thing they see.
It
It
has
should be you that they see. As a designer, I think I failed if they notice the clothes first.
Yeah.
You have to look at and see the woman first. So there's always this push and pull of design
Yeah.
wherein you sort of like hold back so that there's a lot of the woman still that's going to be noticed.
That's amazing. I knew I was gonna hear a nugget of wisdom from you today, and that was
So
it.
coursey.
Yeah, Kursi. Okay, so it was also said that you started designing clothes in your grandmother's basement. What was that experience like, and how pivotal was your grandmother's role in your road to success?
Honestly, it wasn't really in her basement. During that particular time, households would always have sewers, seamstresses in the house. They would do sort of like little sort of like chores. For instance, they would make tea towels, they would make cobrecamas, they would make curtains. They'd also know how to make clothes. So my grandmother had a seamstress. Her name was Manang Charing.
Okay.
Manang Charing would be the seamstress in the house that would actually do odds and ends. Like for instance, kasi lahat naman nun, unlike now, we have online shopping to
Yeah.
buy curtains or we
Uh-huh.
have
The
anything we need.
accessibility and
Then you
yeah.
have to really make your own. If you want to make throw pillows, you'd go to Divisoria, you'd buy the fabric, and then you make the throw
Make-
pillows. So Lola had a seamstress.
Okay.
And because I would always be around her, I'd be always looking at what the
Looking
seamstress
and
would do.
curious.
One day, Lola bought tela and she wanted to have like a house dress, they call them dusters.
Uh-oh.
And I was looking at it and I remember this vividly. I was probably 7. And Lola said, wag niyo yung gawin, wag ganyan.
Okay.
And I literally got
The fabric.
the dress out of the sewing machine and restructured the collar. And it was like
Amazing.
really interesting how
Yeah.
at that particular age I knew what I liked and what I didn't
yeah,
like.
Yeah.
And Lola Betty was like kind enough to sort of like really just I guess encourage me.
That's great. So, Raho, you pursued formal training in fashion design, attending both the New York Fashion Institute of Technology and Central St. Martin's in London. How did these experiences shape your approach to design and your understanding of the fashion industry?
Oh my goodness. They seem so long ago, but yet they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're young, you basically have this sort of like desire to conquer the world. And I think it was interesting because when I was in New York, this was sort of like late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
these were the last moments where you'd still sort of like be able to party in the tunnel or the club scene.
Yeah.
And these were the last moments of really these sort of like dark times of New York, wherein you can really see all these interesting people. And I think more than the education, it was really the experience of living by yourself, of becoming free, of being open to all of these sort of like inspirations. And what FIT taught me was structure,
Structure.
basically creating order out of the chaotic mind. And with Central St. Martin's, it what taught me was freedom to create without fear. I think these sort of like institutions lead you and lend you certain knowledges about how you can craft your skill to
Yeah.
become the designer that you should be or you are.
Or the
But I mean, in hindsight, school is just really an avenue to sort of like give you essential tools. But the tools are nothing if you don't know how to use them. I always tell the young designers, yes, it's important to have an education,
Yeah.
but it's more important to actually use what you've learned. And sometimes the theory is so different from reality.
From application.
Yes,
right?
from application.
So
And
it's
and
fun.
I've always sort of like expressed this,
Yeah.
that it's not the school that you went to, but really how you sort of like use all the tools that are given
That
to you.
you use.
Because some of the best designers aren't actually school trained. So it's not a sure all and be all of to become
succeed,
a good, yes, to
right?
succeed. No, I
Yeah.
don't believe in that.
Okay. So here, this is interesting. You've had a long history with Mega, as we talked about during the start of our conversation. And one amazing trivia is that you were an illustrator for the magazine. Can you tell us about that? How did that come about?
You know, I think it was sort of like really a series of wonderful, fortunate events, almost serendipitous. Michael Salientes, who I think was one of your first fashion editors, heard of me and essentially knew that I drew quite well and asked me to do some illustrations for an article. So basically, you read the article, you draw, you submit the article. And I think they really liked the sketch.
Yeah.
And soon after, they asked me to do a series more of illustrations. And then I think if it was not Sari who asked me, it was Mike who asked me, would you like to create an ongoing editorial?
Yeah. Like
Called
a color?
Style File.
Oh, all right.
Style File basically was just they give me ideas of what stories to illustrate, and then I'd go and illustrate. And so every month I'd have a little illustrated 3 or 4 pages.
So, Raho, I wanted to go to Mega Young Designers competition because, as you know, we've activated it again. We've launched it
Congratulations.
recently. Thank
How
you.
exciting.
So I feel like Mega YDC played a crucial role in shaping the landscape of Filipino fashion. Can you take us back to your early experiences as a participant in the competition and, maybe share how it influenced your career?
You know, it was so fun. Primarily because most of the contestants spoke Bisaya. And my
Oh, at the
mother's
time.
Visayan. Anyway, to make a long story short, I felt like since I was from Manila, I felt like I needed to sort of like take them out,
Yeah.
show them around.
Yeah.
So I was like literally their tour guide.
Oh, you did
And
that?
we'd
Okay.
hang out, we'd go out. I mean, although there was a competition, it was very, very
Yeah,
friendly.
friendly.
I mean, because we were all very young, we had sort of like, we had no other motives but to just sort of like showcase our work. We were just so happy
Yeah.
to be part of it because can you imagine, at that point, we were being photographed by incredible photographers. The models that we were given to us were so amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, it was as if we were like given the chance to really shine.
Yeah. And
I mean, I
showcase.
still have that amazing first book
Mhm.
that you guys created
Yeah,
for us. And
yeah.
I saved it from the flood. And I look at it up to this day because can you imagine you're 20 years old and you're given that particular opportunity? I think that
I
was
know.
phenomenal. I
Yeah.
think that was probably one of my most joyful memories is meeting co-designers of my age
Yeah.
and sharing our experiences, our dreams, our hardships, our challenges,
Aspirations, yeah.
and our aspirations.
So, Raho, 'cause since we're talking about Mega YDC, of course, our founder, Sari, was a staunch supporter of Filipino designers and Filipino fashion. What is your memory of her?
Oh my God. When I first met her, she was, it was funny because she was Opus Dei.
Yeah.
She was from this sort of like school of prayer, of, I remember her, hindi yan nagmi-mini skirt.
Okay.
When I first met her, lahat naka-covered,
Yeah.
and it was interesting because it had this sort of like almost juxtaposition of somebody who loves fashion,
Fashion.
but also was very faithful to her religion.
Our faith. Okay.
So that my first memory of her was that, na parang, what an amazing individual to be able to sort of like live in a cross section of faith and fashion.
And fashion.
And then fast forwards when she moved on to different faiths,
Yeah.
and moved on to different beliefs and spirits. But the core was there. She was a highly spiritual woman with lots of incredible dreams. And she'd be so happy to see all of this at the moment realized.
Yeah.
Because this is something that she has dreamed of. And you,
Yeah.
all her, maybe her children, are still continuing living her dream.
The legacy. Yeah.
And her legacy. So I'm very proud to, in a way, be part of that
Yes,
legacy
we're both
of
part
Sari.
of it, Raho, right? All right. So the Mega Young Designers competition is making a comeback. And you expressed your enthusiasm, of course, for its return. What do you hope emerging designers will gain from participating in such competitions? And how do you see them shaping the Filipino fashion?
I hope that they take advantage of the situation that they're given. I hope that these young designers realize that they are in a position of immense blessings. That I want them to take every single thing and become a sponge, because these
Absorb.
opportunities don't
Come
happen
easily.
every day.
Yeah.
And that's one. Number two, a wise person once said that the beginning of every mountain is at the top. And I always believe that once you reach the top, it's just the beginning of another mountain. And you have to continuously looking at it at that. Because that, in a way, will not stop your creativity. And I think that's really what this whole process is.
Yeah.
Is harnessing this energy of creativity. And I think that's what Mega is doing by infusing this incredible energy of creativity.
Yeah.
And you can only get that, truly get that, by associating yourself with the youth,
Yes.
with the young designer. Primarily because they are not jaded, they are not worried about costs, they are not worried about Mrs. Chua getting upset if her dress is late. They
Yeah.
are just there to create.
Yeah.
And I think that's the gift that you are going to be giving all of these incredible young designers, is the opportunity to dream, and the opportunity to realize their dreams, and the opportunity that you've laid out for all these years.
What a beautiful sentiment. Thank you, Raho. I mean,
And I thank you. Niloko lang.
so scores, please. No, but like you're right. And in a way, youth is also a currency in that sense.
Yes. And I think we have, it's a symbiotic thing. I think, to be honest, I'm so excited to see what's going to happen to this, because
Yeah.
it's an inspiration. We are inspired by the young. The young is inspired by what we've done in the past. So it's almost like this, how shall I say, ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's this beautiful ecosystem of, again, creativity.
Exchange. Yeah. So, Raho, your advice to aspiring designers emphasizes authenticity, fearlessness, and embracing the unconventional. How do you see these qualities reflected in your own journey?
Oh my goodness. I've done a lot of silly, stupid things in the past.
Really?
Only because I was in a hurry. I was extra aggressive.
Okay.
I was hungry. And I'm not apologizing for that. It's just that when you're older, you realize that slowly is the fastest way to where you want to be. What that means for me is that oftentimes, when you're in a hurry to get to somewhere you want to be, you forget all these lovely little details.
Yeah.
And as I look back, I wish I'd sort of like slow down a
Down
bit,
a bit.
so
Okay.
that I can really
Enjoy.
enjoy
Okay.
the process. And that's, in a way, what I want to share with the young designers. You'll get there. Huwag tayo masyadong magmamadali.
Just trust the process.
Just trust the process, because slowly is the fastest way to
to
get
get
where you want to be.
Another nugget of wisdom from Rajo Laurel. Okay, Raho, every designer has a defining moment that catapults them into the spotlight. Aside, of course, from YDC, can you share the story behind your big break as a designer and how it transformed your career?
Oh,
Like,
honestly, for me, it was a very personal thing.
mhm.
Uh, my big break, I think, is when I won the Young Designers competition in Singapore. I didn't win. I won second place, but yet it gave me the opportunity to actually tell my dad, na parang dad,
This is
this is it. This is
Yeah.
where I want to be. Obviously, he had other dreams and aspirations for me, like any father should be. They're only
Yeah.
just want the best for their children, and the welfare of their children was at their um, most important concern. However, I knew that my dad was sort of like really worried about my future. And when I won that, it gave me and him the opportunity to sort of like realize that parang this is where he wants to go.
Yeah.
So in a way, he let me go. And in a way, that pivotal moment gave me the opportunity and the chance to sort of like be free from disappointing him,
Yeah.
be free to follow my dreams,
Yeah.
and the capacity to just begin. So that was a very personal moment. It
Yeah.
wasn't really like, for instance, dressing up a movie
Yeah.
star or landing a particular my first cover in
Cover.
Mega.
Yeah.
Although all of these were very important and pivotal moments for me, but it was the acceptance of my father and my family to say, Raho, go.
Yeah.
Once they gave me
Yeah.
that signal,
Yeah.
I felt, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
The start of the race had
Has
truly begun.
begun. And the support of the family is really something
Oh my
that
God.
you
Yeah.
wanted, right?
Of course. I mean, to this very day, my whole business is about my family. I work with my brothers and sisters.
Yes.
My mom is our CFO. My sister's our manager. Jella, who is just
Yes,
here,
also a
is also
creative.
part
Yeah.
of it. So, in many ways, my foundation has always been that. So, it was very important for me that I get that seal of approval.
And that buy-in, right?
Yeah.
How is the dynamics like? Because I'm curious because of course it's family. So
It's like anything. There's a lot of disagreements. There's a lot of agreements. There's a lot of fun, but we always just have to realize that we have to respect our own boundaries. It's about boundaries.
Yeah.
It's about, for instance, my sister would never interfere with creativity until she feels she needs to, or I would never sort of like interfere with how she runs her human resource management things unless I feel the need to. We have arguments, but
Yeah.
we've realized that instead of shouting at each other or even making deadma one another, a really good tip, maybe with any family or any relationship, is to write it out.
Oh,
Write
okay.
letters
Write letters.
instead of really
verbalizing
verbalizing.
sometimes. Yeah.
Because when you write, you have a way to sort of like read it first before
Edit.
sending it out, and you edit it, and
Yeah.
in a way it's calmer
Mhm.
because you're the person when they're reading the letter can
Yeah.
actually process it in a way, and that's one of the things that I've learned is when we feel strongly about something and we don't want to hurt another person's feeling or really want to express as clearly as you
As
want,
you
write
can.
a letter.
Yeah.
And the art of writing letters is something that we need to continue.
My next question is dressing celebrities and prominent personalities often elevate a designer's profile. Can you recall the first celebrity or personality you dressed that,
Yes.
helped your visibility?
Oh my God, of course. The very first celebrity I dressed was Agot Isidro.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. It
Agot
was
Isidro was
Agot.
the very
Okay.
first. I dressed her for her
Okay.
concert.
Uh-huh.
And I was so excited because I found her so beautiful and she still is so gorgeous.
Yes.
So she was my very first celebrity. I was 20 years old.
So Raho, as a fashion designer, do you have any golden rules of style? It's like maybe a tip that you
Oh.
apply to yourself or you give to clients or
You know-
friends.
God, always comfortable shoes. No matter how beautiful you are,
I
if your
agree with
shoes
you.
are painful,
Then
wala na.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think fashion is fun.
Yeah.
I believe that fashion should be something that should not be taken way too seriously.
Seriously.
A lot of the people take it way too seriously. Have fun with
So
it.
have fun. Oh, so last year you celebrated your 30th year in the industry. I'm repeating that. How did it feel to reach that, milestone?
We we celebrated differently.
Okay.
Normally, when we celebrate milestones like that, you shout it out to the world.
Uh-huh.
We went to the... But my sister and I decided that we wanted to invest in ourselves, in our company, in our people.
Yeah.
I believe that we are only as good as the people that surround us. So we celebrated quietly by investing in our people, by putting them through seminars, buying better machines, improving the computers in the office, renovating our office spaces, giving health checkups to
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
employees. We thought that that would be the best way to
Way to
really celebrate.
That's amazing.
Rather than having
Yeah,
a
like a big
gala or a
celebration
show,
or
I think
show.
what we wanted to do really was invest in our people,
Yeah, yeah.
invest in the people who have worked with us, who have stood by us,
Yes.
who are with us, because
Yeah.
without them, we wouldn't be here. So I listened to my sister. It was her idea. And she said, Rajo, I know you want to do this, but listen, for the same amount, why don't we sort of like make sure that our manangs and manongs have proper health coverages?
Yeah.
That their eyes are okay, that their health are okay. So we celebrated in a very meaningful way.
Yeah.
Instead of looking outward, we actually celebrated inward.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it goes back to your core about family. You take care of your circle and, empower them to be able to be, the best versions of themselves because at the end of the day, they're part of.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful to see all our employees grow with us.
So how did you make your name into a business? What does it take to build a brand?
There's a lot of factors in order to build a brand, and I've always sort of like thought of how to answer that. But I think the one of the best ways to do it is really, I cannot emphasize enough that it is a business. So you need proper structures.
Okay.
That you have to also put several hats on, not just your creative hat, but you have to have your accounting hat, you have to have your HR hat, you have to have different personalities in order to deal with the situation at hand. However, you always have to begin with what your intention is. What do you want out of this whole experience? A lot of questions are asked, but the beginning and the ultimate question is that what do you want to happen later on? What is the legacy that you want to leave behind? And legacies can only be fulfilled if your intentions are clear and if your intentions are well laid out. A properly laid out branding
Yeah.
situation will always begin with the intention.
Yeah.
And I always sort of like go back to that.
To that. Okay. So during the first time, maybe the first time you set your intention, would you say that also evolved during that?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously our intentions change because as we age,
Yeah.
we want different things. For instance, in the beginning, you wanted world domination.
Yeah.
You wanted to dress up the entire Philippines or even, go abroad. But as you age, you sort of like realize what's important.
Yeah, yeah.
What is important to you and what is important to your family, what's important to the people around you. For me, what's important for me, honestly, is consistency.
Yeah.
It's a
Consistency.
consistent sort of like security not only for myself but for my family, but also for my employees.
Yeah.
A sense of place wherein when you sleep at night, you know that we're going to be able to provide for people, that we'll
Yeah.
have enough money for them to feed themselves, enough money for them to put their children to school.
Yeah.
I mean, your circle becomes smaller and your dreams become more real.
Yeah.
And the more real you get, the more you understand what your purpose truly is.
Which goes back again to your intention or purpose. And I like that.
Yes.
So like in the beginning you have to set a clear intention or a purpose.
Correct.
It's a pillar or like maybe it's a pillar that you go back to.
Yeah, it's
right?
almost like your foundation.
Mhm,
It's
your
basically what
foundation.
you go back to every now and then. So to all the young designers, think about that.
Have you had any struggles in maybe innovating or introducing new ideas due to the number and distinct niches of the brands you managed? Because you own multiple brands.
Yeah.
There's House of Laurel, there's Rajito, there's Rajoman. How do you find the
there's
balance?
of course,
Yeah.
of course, there's always going to be challenges, but that's
Yeah.
what life
Part of
is.
it. Yeah.
You have to sort of like take it with with a grain of salt. Nothing good naman came easy eh. So you have to sort of
Agree.
like, you have to work at it. I mean, alam mo, pag madali yan kunin sa'yo.
Yeah.
Pero pag pinaghirapan mo, and if you really work hard
Work
at
hard
it,
for it.
people cannot take that away from you.
Now I want to go to another persona that you have, the Rajo, the traveler.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Diba? In a TED Talk, you mentioned how traveling has been a huge part of your creative process.
Oo, kasi most of my savings go to it.
Could you elaborate, or is there a specific memory that comes to mind where you have applied what you experienced in
You
your
know, I
travels?
mean, we were very lucky because my mom used to work for the Philippine Airlines. And she and my dad would really espouse the value of traveling
Mm.
because it really provides a clearer, bigger, wider scope of education, not only for myself, but for everyone. It provides you perspective. It gives you sort of like the realization that you don't live in a bubble, that Manila is not the world. And therefore, I've always loved to sort of like experience new things, try new things, and it really just widens your horizons. So, I mean, I always say, I mean, because I don't have kids, I will just sort of like use the money to sort of like see the world. And I'm very grateful that I have a partner who also is as adventurous with that particular desire
Desire.
to see the world.
Okay, this is all. This is another interesting question. You also mentioned that a lot of your design inspiration comes from spiders or
Ah,
arachnids.
yeah.
That said, how did your fascination of that came about? And aside from these examples, where do you draw your some of your design
You know,
inspirations?
again, it's all boiled down to childhood. As a child,
Childhood. Okay.
I don't know if you in our province kasi we'd go to the we'd go to the forest or to the bukid and we'd collect spiders and we'd make them fight
And put it in a
and put it in a
matchbox.
matchbox, yeah,
Yes,
and then make
yes.
it fight. And I would always be sort of like so interested in that particular toy.
Yeah.
And because of that, I really began to sort of like read more about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
If you take notice of how an insect is designed, it's probably one of the best designed creatures that God has created. So take a look at it. I just found it fascinating. And obviously, when you find something fascinating, it transcends. It actually affects your work, your mindset, your well being, because you like it.
Yeah.
So anything that you are interested in will always permeate into your work.
Into your
Yeah, for instance, like I'm a certified plantito now. I mean,
Okay.
seriously. I mean, I love plants and
Yeah.
flowers. Like every day, I talk to
Yes, I
my
see your
plants.
posts.
I do my flower arrangement. So that will always affect your work.
Yeah. And I like that you also take inspiration from the mundane and,
Yes,
sort of like have your own interpretation about it, right? And,
absolutely.
present it in a manner that's never been maybe seen before.
I'd like to think. I mean, obviously, designers are we're just storytellers. We're really just storytellers. We basically begin with a mindset, a story in my head, and then you express it. So I
Express it.
think that's what we are.
Creative expressors. Okay, so sustainability, I think, is such a buzzword. Of course,
Oh
it's
yes,
been going on for years now.
years.
How does sustainability factor into your design philosophy?
It's so important more than ever.
Mm-mm.
Primarily because we are living in really a sad, dying world.
Mhm.
When you think about it, we are actually going to be one of the first generations that will be far richer than our children. Normally, each generation improves themselves,
Over
whether through
time.
wealth
Yeah.
or whether through education
Yeah.
or whether not. But the next generations are really going to be having a more difficult time because of the resources that have been left to them. Unfortunately, we have really been so not careful with the way we
Careless.
consume,
Oh, yeah.
with the way we careless, with the way we do things. So now I think it's about time to really realize that we have to manage our resources in such a way that we don't waste them.
Yeah.
So it's not just, I think, like a buzzword or something that people just sort of like slap on because
Yeah.
it's chic or it's
Yeah.
now it's new.
It's
It's
trending.
really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
I constantly have to remind myself to do that. So save our remnants,
Yeah.
find ways to sort of like make the clothes better made. And all that really constitutes into something that is meaningful. Remember, I'm a designer that creates clothes that are not mass produced. Madami na yung 36 pieces. So we don't really do a lot. So it's really from the school of slow fashion.
Yeah.
So slow fashion is an advocacy that everybody should truly not just sort of like think about, but really live by.
Yeah.
I love all these new projects of mine wherein the mothers would bring their dresses and I would
Yes.
sort of like
Rework
transform
or
and rework. I think
yeah.
that's so
Yeah.
meaningful, especially with me who's been doing this for 30 years, as
Yeah.
you said.
Yeah.
Like children are bringing in clothes of their mom and all the memories come and how I can make it new for them and
Yeah.
how I can make it sustainable but yet meaningful talaga for me so important
Yeah.
because it's sort of like how nice that they kept something I made
Yeah.
and
Over the years.
over the years.
I feel like that's also the testament to maybe the craftsmanship and the versatility and maybe the classicness of the
Yeah.
piece.
Yes.
Because, of course, the bones are still there, as you
Yes,
said, the
yes, yes.
foundation. But for you to also interpret it for the new generation, and they themselves choose and love to have that piece
Yes.
reimagined,
Yes.
and it makes it more meaningful. You're
Absolutely.
right. You're right.
It's nice.
Oh, Raho, you also launched collaboration with a dinnerware brand,
Yes.
Casa Juan.
Casa Juan.
What is the inspiration behind that project? Because I know Michelle is
Oh, yeah.
someone you work with, and
Who's very close to Sari actually.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It was a pandemic project because
It
we were
was,
all
okay.
spending so much time in our houses.
Uh-huh.
And we needed to sort of like make our lives more beautiful.
Mm.
So she thought of calling me out of the blue, said, would you want to design tableware? And I said, sure. As we spend more time in our homes, we'd also like to sort of like how to make our lives at home more beautiful. So I immediately thought of like, drawing things on the
Yeah.
plates
Yeah.
and creating a very simple black and white collection,
Yeah.
which is, I think, well, it did very well. It's doing very well. In fact, we're in our third collaboration, preparing for our fourth
Oh, wow.
collaboration.
That's great.
It's always sold out.
So are those new design sketches, or did you go through your archive?
No,
and-
we went. The first one was all new. The second one was the archival iconic sketches, and then the third one was the Terno series,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
the fourth one is Abangan.
Okay, we have to wait
Yeah,
for
we'll
that.
wait for
and
that.
then- yeah. So Rajo, as a judge on Project Runway and Drag Race Philippines, was there a difference in your approach in judging, and what would you say are some of your favorite memories from
Oh my
these
God.
experiences?
Yes,
Lots.
there's such a big difference
Okay.
between judging Project Runway and Drag Race.
Okay.
The big difference is that it's almost like decades apart. In that 10 years, there's a different audience mindset. We're in the audience now take really everything to heart.
To heart. Okay.
Because words are powerful
Mhm.
and words can really hurt.
Yeah.
And as a Gen X person, you have to also learn.
Yes.
You cannot just sort of like say na parang, I know everything.
Yeah.
Because they have something to share. And for me, my biggest takeaway from judging Drag Race versus judging Project Runway is that you need to be very careful when you're criticizing someone. Because in Drag Race, their persona that they present is also themselves. You cannot separate the persona to the person.
To the person.
They're one.
Okay. Yeah.
In the same vein, Project Runway was there's a wall because you're judging their clothes,
Yeah.
their work.
Yeah, their work.
It's not really them.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
the main difference. You're judging what their output is. While in Drag Race, you're literally judging them.
Them.
So that's
Yes.
where parang
Yeah.
I had to sort of like relearn how I judge. And I learned a lot because I was canceled in Drag Race. I
I
said,
didn't know that.
yeah, I said some things that I shouldn't have said, and I take full responsibility for
Yeah.
it. I apologized. It wasn't just for the TV. It was basically a comment because the objective was to transform trash into couture.
Yes.
And I said, that's still trash. This is still trash. And parang it was wrong. And
I
I
see.
hurt Eva La Queen. I hurt her feelings and I've apologized many times. And I think I've learned from that. And I think we as people should realize that we make mistakes.
Yes.
And it's about taking responsibility for that mistakes. And because we're all human.
Yeah.
And for me, I think I've become better because of it.
Yeah. I think it takes a lot of humility to, admit that or realize that and just, say that, yeah, I made a mistake, right? I mean, I feel like social media is also toxic in a way. And now that I'm more active or play a part or participate in it, I'm also very careful
Yeah.
because
But it's a dual, it's a double-edged sword.
yes,
Kasi no, we grew up without it. So parang
precisely.
there are certain days na parang ang sarap magalit sa sa
Yeah.
sa Instagram. But
Yeah.
I guess there's certain decorum.
Yes. Rajo, in defining Filipino fashion, you have been a huge advocate in the promotion and preservation of indigenous fabrics and empowerment of local artisans. That said, how important is it that young designers adopt the same philosophy?
Oh, I think it's very important
Mm-mm.
that we again help each other.
Yeah.
As I said, it's an ecosystem.
Mhm.
We cannot create our clothes without fabric.
Yeah.
We cannot create our designs without our artisans. We cannot sort of like claim that this is Filipino if there's nothing
Filipino
Filipino in
about
it,
it.
about it. So we have to sort of like realize that we have to help the embroiderers. We have to help the weavers. Unfortunately, it's becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, but it's still there. The only way we can do it as creatives and as designers is to help one another.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love what our First Lady is doing by creating all of these weavers coming to Manila and really exchanging their experiences, not only their products, but really their work
Yeah.
and their stories. I think it's very vital that we are able to sustain this communication
Yeah.
between our artisans
Yeah.
and our creatives
Yeah.
because it's a symbiotic relationship.
Relationship.
We cannot exist without
Without
them,
them.
and they cannot exist without us. So we have to really find a way to help one another.
This community, right?
Yes,
Because
yes,
as you
yes.
mentioned, unfortunately, it's a dying practice,
Mhm.
or not a lot of them find it as lucrative, or they.
Absolutely.
So it is important to get that support. So from like maybe individuals like you, right?
It's there. It's just whispering. So we need sort of like the advocacies like Mega Magazine to create a megaphone situation out of it by making it really an important dialogue, an important sense of discussion.
Discussion. I have a follow up for that. Recently, you have reacted to a statement made by Michael Cinco about how Filipino designers are underpaid and undervalued. Why was it important for you to speak up?
Because I think Michael just verbalized a lot of the sentiments that we Filipino designers were feeling.
Okay.
Obviously, he has a big international following, and he's always very proud of his being Filipino.
His roots.
And I think it's important that we have a voice. And I believe Michael's right. I
Yeah.
mean, we cannot just sort of like take it in without saying something. And I think he was brave enough to speak for all of us that this is our livelihood, so you cannot take it lightly.
Yeah.
That, for instance, you can just sort of like ask everything or anything for free
Yeah. Or demand.
or demand.
Yeah.
Because this is our livelihood.
Yeah.
This is where we feed ourselves.
Yeah.
This is where we feed our employees.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. I believe that it's important to build relationships. Like I was telling you before you ask a favor, you have to sort of like ask, am I worthy of that favor?
Yeah.
Is that favor going to be given to me because I've actually created a relationship with this designer?
Or a connection.
Or a
Or a
connection,
friendship.
or a friendship.
A sense of familiarity.
Exactly.
Right.
If the answer is yes, then go ahead.
Yeah.
If all of these things are checked
Ticked off
box, the yes box,
Yeah.
then by all means.
Yeah.
But if you have any hesitation, sabi nga ni Michael, mahiya ka naman.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but it does happen a lot, Rajo.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you can always control the narrative by politely declining naman.
Politely declining. Okay. All right. So, Rajo, knowing what you know now, can you give us your top 5 lessons that aspiring fashion designers should know if they're looking to enter the industry?
Let me see. Number one, you have to really love fashion.
Okay.
Okay, that's number one.
Love fashion.
You have to really breathe, eat, consume, not as a shopper, but really know your history. Read about the history of fashion because that's going to be important for you. Love fashion. Number two is study. Okay, try to go to school, or if not, try to get a apprenticeship or try to get an internship so that you can actually learn from mentors and mentees. That's number two. Try to do that. it's important to actually establish the difference between idealism and realism. There's something very different when it's already there in your face. So that's very important for me. Number three, as a fashion designer, it's more important for me not just to sketch, but to actually know how to make clothes.
Okay.
Learn how to make clothes. Take your old clothes apart and put them back together. Buy a second-hand sewing machine and start sewing. Because it's very important that you actually know how to visualize and realize your ideas.
Yeah.
Remember, if you cannot make your ideas tangible, they are just ideas. And ideas are useless when it's just ideas.
Yeah.
You need to be able to make them real and tangible. So learn the craft, learn how to sew. Fourth, make as much friends as you possibly can.
Okay.
In my world, the network I've built is far more valuable than my bank account. I think the camaraderie and the friendship and the network that I've built throughout the years is so important. And normally it's the friends that you've made in the beginning of your career that will always be there
for you.
till the end. So
Okay.
I think that's a really wonderful tip, is that make friends. Make as much friends as you can, because they'll help you in the future. And lastly is have fun.
Okay.
Have fun, have fun, have fun. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to sort of like say to your naysayers, what are you doing? Why are you doing in
Yeah.
fashion? There's no future there. Have fun, because if this is what you love to do, you'll always have fun. And when you're having fun, you are going to be continuing to do what you want to do because you're happy. Fun equates happiness. And once you're happy, half the battle is done.
Yeah.
So
the
those
joy
are
is
the,
there.
and the joy is
Right,
there. So
right.
those are the 5 things that I can share with all the future fashion designers out there.
I like the last one.
Oh, of course.
Have fun.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, Pee-wee, if we're not having fun, alis na tayo dito.
I mean, and you're still at it. So
Yeah,
there's still joy.
I
right?
still love it.
Yeah.
I will love it till the day I die, because this is what makes me happy.
And this is really where you belong. This is your world.
Yes.
So, Rao, how do you stay informed about current fashion trends? Do you believe in trends, or do you strive to create timeless pieces? You're not as dependent when it comes to.
Of course,
how do you approach
it's
it?
important you have to know trends. I mean, trends are just sort of like a zeitgeist.
Yeah.
You know, before I'd actually look at the different Instagram accounts. But ang dami-dami, there's so many, I get confused.
Yeah.
So you know what? The best way to really get the trends is to just to immerse yourself with young people. I'm very lucky that I have a pool of young designers and I'm constantly around young people who basically share with me what they're listening to, what they're reading, what they're eating, what they find cool.
Yeah.
So I constantly ask them, hey, what are you watching now?
Yeah.
What are you reading? What are you streaming? What music are you listening to? So I've always sort of like been in the mindset of asking a lot of questions. Sometimes they share, sometimes they don't. But when they do share, I try to look for it and I try to see if I like it or not. And more often than not, I do.
You do.
I do.
So you make it a point to immerse yourself really.
Yes. I think that's important to constantly become fresh and constantly become relevant. Because, you know, there's no wrong or right thing.
Precisely.
It's just almost a matter of taste.
Yeah, it keeps us young. Right? Considering the dynamic changes and upcoming innovations in fashion, how do you envision the future of your brand? What's next for Rajo Laurel?
Honestly, I'd like to outlive myself. I'd like to be one of the first Filipino brands that will continue without me.
Okay.
So I'd like, we're preparing for this. We're preparing for our brand to continue with or without me. We've been trying it out. We've been testing the market by having the collection designed by other people. Most recently, I was so excited that Martin Bautista joined me
Your
in doing
collaboration.
Our holiday collection. So we're collaborating with more young designers. And so it's going to be a wonderful dialogue of how to continue our brand with new voices and new creatives. And that's one of my dreams, to outlive myself.
Yeah, but I think that's gonna be far in the future, pa.
Oo naman.
Thank you so much, Rajo,
Thanks,
for joining us
Kiwi.
today.
I'm so
that
happy to
was
be
an
here.
amazing conversation.
I know. Congratulations on your show. And I hope everybody watches it. And I hope everybody shares it. So follow, like, subscribe.
Yeah, and I just want to return the favor, the sentiment to you as well. Congratulations on like your 30th year, and you're one of really the designers that, of course, our audience looks up to.
Oh, thank you.
And may you continue, just living out your dream and your purpose.
Thank you. And
Thank
to
you
as
so
well.
much, Rajo.
Blessings
Okay.
all around.
Yes,
Sari.
blessings
Sari's here.
all around.
Sari's here.
Okay.
Sari's here.
We have some flowers
Oh,
for
my
you
favorite.
from Ginger Flowers.
Thank you. Oh my goodness.
Thank
and
you
these
so much,
last
Rajo.
forever.
They do. So Rajo, what is your next move?
Make it big. Make it mega. No, my next move is make it big, make it mega.
Okay. Thank you, Rajo.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of The Next Move. This has been your host, Piri Reyes Isidro. If you enjoyed our conversation and want more updates, subscribe to the Mega channel. Bye, everyone.